All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to our spring surf panel. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Matthew Smith, and my co-host is Suzanne Wilchin, and we are both grant administrators here at the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs, and we are the two that will help all the students and mentors get through the surf process and applications in the fall. We've also got Joy Ritchie, our director. She's kind of doing the Zoom fun back of house stuff. So she's around if questions or something come up that she can help with. Speaking of questions, if anybody has any questions, there's a few ways we can do that. You can put it in the chat for everybody to see. You can use the Q&A function to send them to the panelists. You should also have a button to raise your hand. We can do it that way. We can also enable your microphone and you can ask the question out loud. So there's tons of different ways, and just because we're kind of short on time to get everything in, we'll get to all the questions at the end. So if you think of it, go ahead and send it, and then at the end, we'll go through all the questions. But to get started, we're gonna do a poll question to make sure everybody's awake and paying attention and getting going, and that should fire up about now. There we go. How have y'all dealt with the time change? I'm gonna get our votes in. I know I have not recovered well, so we'll see. We'll see how everybody else gets going. See, my results should pop up just any second. There we go. Oh man, we're about split. Some of us can do it and some of us can't. So okay, we'll get through this together. That's all that matters. All right. So there we go. There's surf background and stats. Just a little bit of information about what surf even is. It stands for the Student Undergraduate Research Fellowship, and it is a program that provides funding for all majors and departments. There's no limits on that. If it's a scientific research, if it's a creative project, we take everybody. It was a program that started in Fayetteville actually in 1992, and then it moved over to the state of Arkansas in 1994. And then in 2005, it became a part of the Arkansas Department of Higher Education. And we tried to look, and as far as we could tell, UCA has always applied for this program as long as it's been available. And we usually average between 5 and 22 people that apply on a really good year. And generally there's about 50% acceptance, which is pretty good in the grant world. So I'm gonna turn things over to Suzanne and she will keep us going.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So our next poll is, what is your experience with surf grants? So this will give our panelists and reviewers an idea of if you've been through this before or first time, everything is new. Let's see how that goes. Okay.
I accidentally let your panelists vote. I suspect the 3 newbies are our 3 students in attendance.
Okay, well, good. This is a really great program where you can actually apply as a sophomore, junior, or senior, or freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Anyway, you can have up to 3 years of funding in your surf project. So there are cases where there are multiple year projects that get funding each year, which is kind of exciting for an undergraduate experience. So next, it's my pleasure to introduce our first panelists, Dr. Douglas George and Jared Flemons, who are out of the sociology department. They have worked on 2 surf projects together.
Hey, Jared, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's good to see Jared again. Jared is one of my students, and He was really good in a couple of my classes and actually good enough overall to graduate. So congratulations, Jared, who is a recent graduate. Um, Good stuff. All right, so I was new to surf. I'm going to say like 2 years ago, um, maybe three. And I'm the advisor for the Sociology Club and the Alpha Kappa Delta Sociology Honors Group. And I got that group together early in the semester, a couple of years ago. Jared was a part of that group. And I asked them what they wanted to do. And so I had several things in mind, and I suggested that we could do a service project. We could do a sponsor some panels. We could try to get some speakers on campus for our clubs and for the public, or we could do some research. And for whatever reason, when I put that out there to them, I could tell that they were interested in maybe engaging in some sort of research project. All right. And so that's how we kind of broke into the surf thing. And actually at that time, I think Jared was the vice president of the club. And the president of our club, ironically enough, of the sociology club, was a psychology major. And she had had some experience with surf before. And so she had applied as an undergraduate psychology major, which I don't know how common that is over there in the psych department, but she had some experience. So she told us, you know, if we're going to do this research project, we could actually apply for some funding that might help us accomplish some of the things that we want to accomplish, or at least maybe expand the objectives of our research project. And so we said, that sounds great. That sounds great. And so we then applied for the project. We were granted funding. I had done a presentation to the Arkansas Sociological and Anthropological Association, actually a couple of years before we started the SURF project. And when I made that presentation to the sociologists at the state conference, the point of my presentation was there is a lot to be gained from mentoring undergraduate students in research projects. And so I had some research on that. And the research that I found clearly indicates that these students really benefit from these research projects that go beyond a semester, you know, into 2 semesters. And I think our project, Jared, was like 1.5 years. And so just as an aside, you know, Jared was really, really helpful and really open to the project. And so I appreciate his effort. And he was really a good research team leader for the project. Jared, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm probably taking up too much time.
Okay, yeah. I'll start this mainly just from like the student perspective. I assume that our attendees are probably students who are trying to gain some information. So I would say the journey began when I'm in one of the, you know, the lower classes with Dud, you know, maybe my intro class and maybe a few of the other classes that start to kind of engage you into some of these like bigger topics within your field. And once you know, start getting into these things, you start seeing these things that open up and you get more and more interested in them. And it's cool to be able to not just take that home with you and, you know, treat it as homework, but instead, you know, realize there are opportunities to go forward with that. And especially if it's something that you are really interested in and want to, you know, engage in and do some research. I mean, it's perfect because then you get to like, I will say Doug helped me a ton. The surf people, Matthew was great. I don't know how many times I went over and saw Matthew. even over like some super small stuff. I think there was one time even about like how I needed to arrange my stuff in my Manila folder. But he was great. He helped us out a ton. But it's getting, I would recommend getting in early. Like I said, I started, I think my second year, started getting involved with the research, and I had a few people that were in, like Aisha, she was the president at the time. She helped get the ball rolling, helped kind of a little bit of a mentor type thing. But I mean, you as a student, you're not, I think a big thing, a lot of students feel like they are a burden when it comes to these type of things, and they don't feel like they can reach out to people like the advisor or, you know, the surf people. But it really is a lot of like a two-way street. And I mean, Doug was super helpful for me. Anytime I had something, we would meet, you know, once a week, even if it was like, you know, casual and just, you know, going over things. But it was great. Once you open that door and you start to see all the things that are, you know, available. I mean, the speakers, we had 2 or 3 speakers come in. All the speakers were related to our research. We got to kind of use that as a jump start to get a little more background information. We got to go to, you know, smaller conferences here in Arkansas, get our stuff together. We even got to go all the way up to Chicago, and we got to present at one of the biggest conferences in the sociological realm of things. So it was a lot of work, and it's kind of intimidating whenever you first get into the process, because you get this, you know, big stack of papers, and it seems like a lot of steps, a lot of work. But if you really just go through it with your advisor, with, you know, anytime you have questions, go to them, go to, you know, the surf people, like just taking it a step at a time. It's really not that hard. I think the first one I done, I actually got sprung on me, and I think I had done it in less than 48 hours throughout the whole process to get over to surf. So
This is a true story, because Aisha was a president at the time, and she kind of got us started. Jared and I had no experience in the thing, but midway through the process, we started the application process. When was that, Jared? Like in November or December? Or she and I had started the process.
mm-hmm.
Then, once we were well into the process and we had our application together, she realized she wasn't going to be a student in January because she was graduating in December. And so I was going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Aisha, what are we going to do? So we emailed Jared. I called Jared and asked him, hey, Jared, I believe this was January 4th, Jared, or 5th, whether he'd like to take it over. And he agreed. And I believe you had your application in, what, just 2 days later. We went and met with the surf people. They were so helpful. Yeah. What else, Jared?
I don't know. I don't know how we're looking on time. I don't know if there's anything else we need to address or not.
No, I think that's great. We're at like minute and a half, so we can move on to our next panelist. Thank you both very much for sharing. Like a very exciting story, the last minute getting it all done, but it worked out, so that's great. Our next panelist is Dr. Gregory Nomiak out of our chemistry department. Unfortunately, his student researcher had a conflict today and she can't join us, but I think they've been in touch so he can share part of her story.
Yep. So I'm from chemistry. So Anne, she wished she could be here, but she's at the University of Minnesota now, pursuing a PhD in medicinal chemistry. And she has a midterm today about advanced organic chemistry mechanisms that she wasn't too pleased about. She believe me, she'd rather be here, but she couldn't, miss that test. So she's doing really well there, and I'll talk about that story towards the end. And she answered a bunch of questions I sent her and that Suzanne gave me to give her as well. So I'll get you Anne's perspective as we go as well. So kind of put this in perspective of, say, that the chemistry viewpoint is, in our major here, research is required. So to graduate, you need to get 2 credit hours of research before you get your degree. However, it's 3 hours a week of research, so it doesn't give students a real feel of what that is like in the lab. I came to UCA about 5.5 years ago now, and the second year I was here, I noticed an email I got that was advertising the surf grant. I knew what these were, but I didn't know, UCA did this, so I was excited for this. And ever since then, I usually have one student apply every cycle for this award because it's a tremendous opportunity to give them real life, like day in, day out research over the summer, 40-hour weeks and all that fun stuff. Success is pretty good. So I think about a third of mine have gotten funded, so which is pretty good. And then Angel was my most recent, and she wishes she was here. But how we got together with this is when you're in chemistry, you usually think about going to a research field. So Angel was already one of my research students. So she was performing research with me for a year and a half at that point. And then she realized at one point, she, ask Angel anything, what her motivating factor is, she will, say money and laugh. So she likes money. So surf does pay fairly well. And she wanted some funding over the summer. She wanted to do research over the summer to prepare her for graduate school research. And so I thought the surf opportunity was a great opportunity for her to do. You could apply for it. She could work in the spring. The money would carry into the summer. Give her a good day in and day out grind of what research is actually like and prepare her for that next step. So we knew each other well before getting into this process. The grant process itself, to quote what she said in the email, she said it was smooth sailing for her, and she got it all done in a very timely manner, and it was nice and easy. But that's Angel being nice. Angel is last minute on everything, so she got to me literally 5 minutes before it had to be turned into the surf office and get everything squared away. So she is a very last minute kind of person, but it's still exceptionally well done. So we're in contact the entire process, edits back and forth, a full-on contact with that. The writing itself was really good experience because as a chemist, what we do at the end of the day is we tell you what we've done. We present our work. And scientific writing is something you don't get a lot of while you're in college. It's more for grad school and beyond. So to have her write a grant and get that grant funded, even if it wasn't funded, I think these are tremendous experiences for any student to do. So funding is the bonus. The real benefit is they learn how to put together a grant document. And I tell them whatever comes to be proud of that document. That is a tremendous accomplishment to write that was 5-6 pages long. That's a lot of writing and a lot of thought and a lot of effort they put into this. So I'm always very proud of my students for that. So she told me some tips she would have along the way is, know what you want to write about before you start writing. So don't go with a blank slate. It's hard to write when you have such an open space. When you begin the writing process, shoot for writing too much and then cut. It's hard to add things later. It's easier to cut things down to size. So overwrite and then cut it down to the proper formatting. So always follow the formatting. She's a big stickler with that one, and so she's a joy to work with. That she follows that extremely well. And then my general tip to any new mentors that want to do this or any current ones, when in doubt, email Suzanne. She helps me with all things, whether it is navigating Cayuse or finishing off the budget and things like that. So she gets a whole lot of my emails at all times. So I'm very grateful for the quick replies I get from Suzanne a lot of the times. And then how surf helped Angel specifically. So she's at the University of Minnesota now, and she credits a lot of this research experience that she did get. So for those that don't know, the UMN is a top 5 chemistry program in the nation. And you hate to say this, but you're coming from a school in Arkansas, there's usually a label from Arkansas for bigger institutions. And to get her into a top 5 institution is fantastic to see. So the scientific writing helped her develop her application. She could write her science better. She had this grant written. So when she applied to graduate school, she had a basis for explain your research to us. She wrote this grant, it was funded, so she knew it was high quality. She worked 40-hour weeks over the course of a summer. And that's what you do in graduate school. So you work 40, 50-hour weeks. So she got there, she hit the ground running. She already had a stamina built up. She was great with experimental methods. And then from all intents and purposes, she tells me she's crushing it. And I do believe her. So she's a fantastic job there. And I'm extremely proud of her. So I do recommend this experience, funded or not. I think it's great. So I've had 3 students go through that were not funded, but it's still beneficial through the entire process. It's a lot of work on our end. It's a lot of work on the student end, but it's very worthwhile work. I advise if you want to get started, start when the the email comes around, usually what, early September, maybe late August, we get the prompts saying like surf is a thing, and they usually do about like late October-ish sometime in there. So start at the beginning of the semester before your students get hammered with exams and homework and things due, because writing a good document, it just takes some good time. And then before we get busy grading, because we want to give them good feedback on their stuff. So take advantage of that honeymoon period, the first couple weeks of the semester, and I think is a great opportunity to get this kind of thing done. That's all I have, because Angel's not here to speak. And she would like talk your ear off for the better part of a couple hours, but yeah, hopefully she does a good on her test today.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and also for kind of interviewing on for us as well. Before we get to our reviewers, we do have another poll that Matthew's going to introduce.
Yes, the last poll, I promise. We just want to know what kind of projects everybody be working on. So this will help our reviewers know kind of who they're talking to and what kind of projects they have to look forward to. All right, and our poll results are 100% STEM. That makes me sad. I work with the non-STEM people, but that's okay. We will help everybody out. So, all right. So we'll get into our reviewers. Our first reviewer is Dr. Pamela Ashcraft. She works in the nursing department, and she is part of the STEM review process.
Yes, I am. Dr. Gale, are you non-STEM? Okay. And I can speak to STEM, and Dr. Gale will speak to non-STEM. And I have been a surf reviewer for probably, I don't know, a long time. I lose track, maybe 8 years. I've been through several people at the Arkansas Department of Higher Ed who have run this program. But basically, when we are reviewing STEM applications or SURF applications in the STEM session, we are assigned based on our area of knowledge. Ahead of time, we get those applications maybe a week or so ahead of time to review, and we have a scoring sheet, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But we do our preliminary scoring individually, and then we all come together and bring our stack of applications that we were asked to review. And we are told once we get to the meeting how much money the state has allocated to SURF grants for that particular year. I think this past year, I can't remember exactly, but it was about $115,000 or $120,000, which sounds like a whole lot of money, and it is, but it doesn't spread as far as we would like, because we would really like to fund everyone who has a qualified project and application. But being nursing, I don't just look at nursing. I can look at any of the applications that are in the health sciences. And, you know, periodically I'll get some, you know, biochemistry or, you know, some biology type things, which is fine, because I'm really there. We're really there to judge the research process and how they've outlined it according to our rubric. And I always have great people over here at UCA in the different departments, chemistry, biology, that I can always call on and say, hey, does this make sense? And everyone goes around and presents their top score and award money based on that. And then we typically have enough money to go around twice and then choose our second highest score. And then by that point, we usually don't have enough to go around for our third top choice. So that's when we really start making a case and arguing our point why this person needs to be funded versus that person. So the stronger your application And the more that it aligns with our grading rubric, then the stronger your chances. I will say that we typically have somewhere between 150 to 200 applications. And as expected, the great majority of those do come from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, but we make sure that we award from all the schools equally, not necessarily equally in number, but equally in opportunity. So I've got the evaluation rubric over here, and it's worth 700 points. So we have 7 categories. The first is the student's academic success. It's a little misleading because it's not just GPA. We also look at GPA, extracurricular activities, and leadership. So I would recommend that when you are filling out your application, or even on your resume that you, or CV that you submit, if you have a leadership role in anything, even if it counts as extracurricular activity, highlight what leadership role you played, because that counts. Sometimes we'll say, well, there's no leadership, when actually maybe you were the secretary or vice president in your fraternity or sorority or club, science club or whatever. We also have a category where we score the qualifications of your mentor. So your mentor needs to be a really good match. And I think Dr. George was alluding to that, and our students spoke about that. And it's not whether or not your mentor has a lot of experience doing this at all. It's just, are they a good match? We look at your mentor's CV as well to see, do they have any experience? If someone like in psychology asked me to be their mentor, all my CV is going to have to do with nursing and healthcare. So it might not be a good match. We want to look at the innovation or the originality, that your topic or project generates new ideas or applies existing ideas to a new situation. We also look at the significance of your study. Do you have outcomes proposed? Is there an impact indicated? And does it show potential to advance the science or the field in your area? And of course, we're going to look at the appropriateness of your methodology. Is it appropriate research design, sampling approach, data collection, so forth. One thing we always want to know is if you either have IRB approval or if you have submitted for IRB approval. If you don't have that, we're probably not going to take a risk on funding someone who may not get IRB approval when there's someone else who might be better served with those funds. Then scientific merit, just basically that you address an area of importance, that you demonstrate how scientific knowledge will be gained from your study, and that the problem or the topic that you're looking at, how is that of value to the larger community? And then lastly, we look at your plan for dissemination. Are you going to do a poster presentation? Do you plan to go to a conference and present? Your budget, is it appropriate? And is it feasible in your timeline that you can do the work that you say? Clarity of writing is always looked at. So those are really the 7 major categories that we look at. And I know that that rubric is available. I believe that Joy, you have it, right? And the SURF folks have it. But, you know, if it changes or if it's different, I can always share that with them and they with you. So if you just go by the rubric. Oh, one more thing. I know my time's probably up. One more thing is, when you are writing your proposal or your application, please don't simply cut and paste from your mentor's research grant or manuscript. We're all researchers, and we can typically tell when a student hasn't written it. That's not to say that you can't use what they had, your mentor, in a grant or a manuscript, but, you know, read it and synthesize it and then present it in your own words, because we really want to see the work of the student. Am I out of time?
2 minutes left. If you
I have one more thing to say then. One thing that we also look at is the mentor. So if your mentor has 3 students applying for a SURF grant, we almost never apply or award 2 grants to the same mentor. So some of the, especially, that's a problem in the bigger labs up at Fayetteville, because they do have so many students in their labs that, you know, Dr. Smith may have 6 students applying. Well, those 6 students don't all have a fair chance of getting an award because we try to only award 1 mentor. There have been rare occasions where we have awarded 2, but it's very, very rare. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ashcraft.
Welcome.
We're going to roll right into the non-STEM review process with John Gale. He's from the Film, Theater, and Creative Writing Department.
Yes, thank you. And Dr. Ashcraft, wonderful job. I mean, there are just a few things that I would, that are different in the non-STEM application, but everything that Dr. Ashcraft has given you is spot on with what you're, what we're after. I have been doing this for 10 or 12 years. I can't remember how long it is. It kind of just gets lost and we go, oh, it's another year. But one thing I do want to emphasize with you is that if you're a faculty mentor, if you're a student, UCA competes very well against the other institutions in the state. So never, ever hesitate to apply for one of these grants, because UCA students are just very good and the faculty support with them is very good. So do not think that, oh, I've got to be against whatever that other university is, because UCA is spot on with what they do. Additionally, going through the process, we do look to see how the faculty member and the student fuse together. And does that faculty member really have the ability to work that way? Now, I tend to catch a lot of things. I look at a lot of arts things, but I've got a background in, because I've been around forever, in PR and in film and in journalism and mass communication and writing and theater and even computer science. But I tend to catch things that maybe can't be assigned to anybody else in the arts. So I get a lot of those. So one of the things that I think you need to look at is I might get something, and I have, on music. And even though I've done a lot of music theater, I'm not a musician. So I will go try to seek out advice from a music faculty member to help me out. But I think one of the things that can happen as you are putting this together is also in your presentation, your writing, present it to somebody who may or may not have a lot of background in that area. For example, if something in music theater comes up, I think I'm the only one that I've seen on the panel in a number of years who has any background in music theater. So you need to write in the same way that you might present to somebody who's educated and knowledgeable, but they really don't know a lot about a particular area. We're fortunate in our panel that we've got a psych professor who can look at those kind of things, and he tends to look at the methodology and the quantitative elements more than we do. Another thing that we look at is how rushed was this? And Jared, when he was presenting, is saying, be ahead of things, because sometimes you can tell rushed writing. You can tell when things have really been put together in a hurry. The other thing, I think, as a student, you need to be prepared to help your mentor know who you are. Many times, all we have is that classroom experience of 3 hours a week, and we look at your work. But one thing I would recommend is, as you are building your vitae, you can also approach a faculty member and say, Dr. George, let me write out for you who I am and what I do. You can give that to him, and then he can insert that in his letter and do some editing. And it would help immensely, because you know yourself better than anyone else. And Dr. George, in the evaluation of what you're doing, can sort of filter through that, put that in his letter, and give you a rather robust letter. I have seen some letters from faculty members that are really only 2 or 3 paragraphs, and that doesn't serve the student very well at all. So if you can help your faculty mentor out by creating a letter that is really tells who you are, I think that could be great. Our process is the same thing. We all come in with a stack of applications. We go round robin around the room. Generally, we move about 4 times faster than the STEM people because there are not as many. But we take that stack and we present our top one. We go around. I don't know that I've ever seen one of those rejected. We go around again, and then about circle number 3, we start pulling things and picking things out. And one of the things we do is we also go, here are my bottom choices, and we set those aside. And very seldom do we get to those. But I think your chances of getting funded are really, really very good. Another thing that sometimes we look at is a student simply putting money into their budget so that they can go take a trip to Chicago or take a trip to, Houston. And we often scrutinize the budget carefully to go, how is this money being used? Because an amount of money may have just been stuck in. And how is this money going to be used? We funded a project a number of years ago where a student was producing a film. And one of the things that the student said is, I need a 2,000 watt light to light an outdoor scene for this film I'm doing. And so she had budgeted $400 or $500 for this light. Plus she said, when I'm done with this lighting instrument, I'm going to give it to the film program so that they have this piece of equipment. And it became an essential part of the equipment for the university doing that. So, we look at the budget that way too. And, if we get a sense that somebody's just simply wanting to take a vacation, then we really do look at that in a very negative kind of way. There are lots of elements that go into that 7-step evaluation. We have the 7 points of 700 points total. And sometimes we weight those a little more heavily than others. I think that really the student's proposal, if it doesn't stack up as strongly as the mentor's background, we're going to go, hey, let's look at this proposal because the mentor's background may be a brand new professor. And the mentor's background maybe is not as strong as somebody else, but we will then drill down in not all parts have equal value. I mean, it's odd to have 100 points for one area and then another area that maybe is not as important and it has 100 points. So we will look at it that way. But do indeed spend some time prepping this, realize you've got a very good chance, and that when you go to non-STEM, we look at it in all sorts of different ways. And it sometimes just depends on the evaluator you get. If you apply, you've got a really good chance, I think, of, if you've got a decent application, of getting funded and running your project forward. In fact, I keep a list of several elements or several people, and I go, I'm going to check with them in a year and see what they did. Because some of this stuff is just fascinating. Everything from art projects to making movies to creating a whole methodology for exploring communication with a board game. So there are many, many interesting facets. So don't be afraid. If you've got something that's weird or odd that you think, that could be a real winner with the review board in the non-STEM. And I will stop right there and just stay ready for questions or whatever we're going to do.
All right, great. Thank you very much. And let's see, we're going to move right along. We're doing super good on time, so that's good. Let's get this popped back up. All right, we'll go over some dates. We already have the dates set for the fall. September 21st, we're gonna do a workshop, and that is more specifically for people to come and see how the SURF process actually works, what's required, what you need to turn in when, how budgets work, and that kind of thing. So if you have some sort of idea of how you want to get started, who your mentor is, bring that along, and we can help you get through that. And then the October dates, we ask everybody to register so we can just kind of keep track of who's interested, who's not, so we can, kind of poke you along when the dates come and you haven't turned your stuff in yet. We do have an optional narrative review process for anybody that may need some help with the writing. And then we have the deadline to turn in all the materials to us. And our office goes through, double checks everything, make sure you have all the parts needed, and then we actually submit it to ADHE on your behalf. Let's see, and there's a December, if you do have the STEM people, I guess non-STEM people if they have it too, but the IRB or IACUC approvals, that whole process needs to start before December 1st. And we can go through that during the fall workshop too, if that applies to you. And then, all right, we'll send a follow-up email so you don't have to worry to remember these dates. We'll make sure everybody that's registered for the panel today has these dates. And then I think we're gonna go back to Suzanne, and she's gonna go over our website just a little bit.
So I'll just jump in and say, people usually ask us, so when do I find out? And we usually find out from ADHE either end of December, beginning of January, and we walk you through that process as well. There's some paperwork to complete as well, but that's pretty much the time frame. And then all projects start January 1st is the start date for your period of performance for your project. So as Matthew said, that we keep a website specifically for the SURF projects. On this website, it holds everything that you'll need to apply. There are all the possible award allocations, eligibility guidelines, checklists and forms, the steps in the submission process, important dates, as well as any additional information, including some templates that we have. We also keep on file previously funded awards. So if you want to see okay, I want to write a proposal on a math project, what would that look like? We probably are going to have an example that you could look at. So definitely feel free to use our office as a resource to get as much information as you need to get started on the project. And so I think that just about concludes everything that we wanted to present to you all today. I'm now checking our various chat Q&A. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any.
Come on, our
There it
puppy
is.
dog needs questions.
Although it is a lot of information that we just threw at you. I do want to say, if you're not familiar with the terms or the acronyms for IRB and IACUC, that's if you have a project that will involve human subjects or animal subjects, there are additional steps that you'll need to go through. And our research compliance officer is in our office and we can make that connection for you. Oh, a question. Great. Where can we go to see the research that has been done through UCA students? So like I said, we keep applications on file, but if you wanted to see the research that's been done, I do know that some colleges have poster sessions in in non-COVID spring semesters that a number of SURF funded projects are shown there. I'll throw this back to the panelists also. Is there a forum in which the student research in your college is presented?
CNSM has we have Chalk Talks series that we do 4 per semester, and 4 students go each time. I can find out when the next one is. I think it's soon. Let's see. The next one is actually going on right now, so we missed that one. But there should be another one coming up in April, which would cover, let's see who's talking in April. April 15th is the next one. Is if you want to highlight some students. I don't know if any of these are surf students per se, but I know they do research, and you can parlay that to kind of what surf research would look like as well. So we got chemistry and biology talks going on April 15th.
I would say, Suzanne, for students who are interested in seeing more than just the application for those students, you can find out from the SURF office here at, or, you know, these folks here, who has been awarded in your particular department, and they could tell you who that mentor was. And then I would just send an email to the mentor and say, I'm applying for SURF funding, or I'm thinking about applying for SURF funding. And I know that, you know, Jane Doe was awarded and you were the mentor. Would you mind sharing his or her research with me? And I think you'll find that they're very willing and happy to share that. And if it happens to also be an honors student, then there's probably a copy of their honors thesis, which may actually be part of their SURF project.
Anyone can email me. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, me too. I'm not sure about anybody else, but again, SURF was so generous, and we really appreciate that. It really gave us the time to produce a pretty good manuscript. So Jared actually submitted that manuscript to the College of Liberal Arts back when we had a College of Liberal Arts. It's different now, John. And that manuscript that they produced, they not only presented based on that manuscript, but they submitted that to the College of Liberal Arts, and it was published in their undergraduate research journal. And you can, you know, again, if you email me, just like Gregory, you know, I'll be happy to forward any information I have on the manuscripts we produced or the papers that we wrote. But yeah, we got published, and it's on the website, the College of Liberal Arts website.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions that not seeing anything else?
I'm going to jump in here. I know that we've got students here doing this. I would encourage any of you who attended today to encourage your classmates to look at this too, and become an ambassador, to get them to apply. You know, Dr. Ashcraft may have seen this. I would like to see even more UCA students apply. And I think that can fall to all of you to just recruit. You know, you may work with somebody who's very industrious in their program in what they're doing and say, hey, why don't you apply for a SURF grant? Because it really can make a difference.
Okay. Definitely. Okay. Any other thoughts to share for the good of the group, or on our recorded version, which will be up on our website, I'm sure, probably next week? No.
I just want to thank our panelists for their time and their expertise this afternoon. This has been so much great information. We really appreciate the work you're doing for student research. This is awesome.
That's great. And it helps us in the office when we're working with faculty and students to hear these perspectives, because then we can help give them good advice and encouragement as well. So definitely many thanks to our panelists today. Thank you to our attendees for taking the time out of your busy schedules right before spring break to be a part of our webinar. Please don't hesitate to call or email any of us at any time if you have questions along the way. I will say also our office is open during the summer. So if you have an idea, feel free to drop us a line and we can help you get started for the fall. In the meantime, as Matthew had mentioned, we'll send a follow-up email to our attendees. And yes, with that, wish you all a happy and safe spring break.